This is Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Mark Thompson is a huge loser. His show, very bad, weak, soft. But if you're interested in crap and you're a communist, you can go to edge-show.com. I don't recommend it.
You're tuned to The Edge with Mark Thompson.
Hi, it's Mark. It's a laid-back show. It's J. Elvis Weinstein, and we bring Michael Shure on to talk politics. I say laid back, but I think there's some decent insights in the show, and I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it. I would say nothing. I would just say, hey, we've got a great show, J. Elvis and Michael Shure. But I think that there are some insights that are worthwhile, so I hope you'll agree. As I do frequently, in fact, as I do most episodes, I thank you for the ways that you support us. We don't take any commercials. You don't hear me reading commercials for any food delivery service or any other products that oftentimes make their way onto podcasts. So we ask that you support our show by subscribing, by recommending it, by sharing certain episodes if you think one might appeal to someone. And if you're going to shop through Amazon, you shop through our website, edge-show.com. We get a little piece of whatever you spend on Amazon. Anywhere you see the Amazon banner, anywhere you see a reference to Amazon, click on it. It'll take you to the Amazon that is the same Amazon you normally use. But because you went to our website, we get a little piece of whatever you spend. And a few of you have even left something in our virtual PayPal tip jar. So thank you for that as well. Let's get started.
This is The Edge.
The advantage it means.
Hey, look, I just spit on me for no reason.
That's horrible.
Is there some comfort in uncertainty, do you think?
You're a degenerate.
Because Australian Shepherds need action.
Wow. Yeah.
This is The Edge.
That's a self-loathing term that I use.
Oh, got it.
With the great J. Elvis Weinstein, the original voice of Servo, documentary filmmaker, comedian. He's got an album in the works. He's also a movie star. His movie is still being posted right now. They're probably editing it right now, or what?
Yeah, they're in post right now.
Yeah. And you just asked a very good question. What was it?
Do you have a sock for my mic?
And the answer is, I did have a sock for your mic, and I used to have a sock for my mic, the thing that prevents the popping sound.
Yeah.
But the guys who were in the studio before... And we had to, we have priority. We have this scheduled, this studio time.
Yeah.
I felt bad that I had to bump them out, and so I let them take the mic socks with them.
Wow.
Even though I shouldn't feel bad. I mean, this is legitimately my studio, but I just feel bad about everything. And
consolation prizes.
Yeah. So please don't hug the mic too closely.
So next time you see Mark, think of how you can shake him down to avoid a confrontation.
You too might get a mic sock. So,
this week's Edge show is brought to you by the letter P.
Please don't pop into the microphone. Michael Shure is going to join us, and we'll talk about some politics and some things going on in the world. Is that cool?
I love it.
All right. Let's get a contestant on the line right now.
Wasn't that good broadcasting enthusiasm when I said I love it like that?
Well, when you say I love it, we've talked about this before. Your enthusiasm lives on the inside.
It does, but it's infectious nonetheless.
Let's get the phone up, please. Now let's dial the phone, please.
You'll have to cut that part out because I think people could decode those numbers.
Remember when they were consistent? Like now they're not.
Yeah.
Like now the tone, you could literally play back the tone and you could get in, through all kinds of... That was a plot point in a lot of caper movies.
Sure.
No, it doesn't work.
Damn. I have to go rethink my caper.
Michael Shure, every time, just scheduling anything with him. And yet he's a great guy to do it because, it's not like you're...
This is 310. Please leave a message after the beep.
That tells more than the tones.
Yeah. I'm going to leave that in so that people will be calling this voicemail.
Right.
Michael, we're supposed to talk right now. You wanted to go earlier, and now it is earlier, and we're calling you.
Passive aggression call.
I've just about had it up to here with Michael Shure. All right, we'll call you back.
Hey.
We're calling you on the hotline number. Can you pick up when we call?
Yeah. Oh, that was that number.
Yeah. Okay, calling you back. All right. I mean, wouldn't you have expected it to be? I'm just saying. I mean, if this was the time we designated, wouldn't you think it might be?
It had heart and the number and everything.
I don't think I'm in the mood to talk to him now.
You're snippy already.
I'm irritated. I will say one thing about Michael Shure's number. Who can't reveal what it is, but it's insanely cool. Like, one of those numbers where it's like
Empire Carpet?
Right. Exactly. I was just saying what a cool number you have. We can't reveal it on the air, but it's 200. I mean,
nice.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. I want to buy a car from that.
Yeah, 310 anybody wants to call. Because a lot of people have issue with a lot of things that Michael Shure says on the show. Instead of going right to him, they email me. And now they should just call him. 310.
Right. It's great to come right to me.
Yeah. Anti-Semites welcome, by the way.
Always.
Anti-Semites assured.
Yeah.
I have another line for the anti-Semites.
Do you? Press 1 if you have something anti-Semitic to say. Michael Shure, it has been too long. We're here with J. Elvis Weinstein, my regular, solid guy I can count on sidekick. And we're talking to political reporter Michael Shure, who is all over the country. He also, is raising a son and doing a bunch of other stuff. So he's seldom someone who, we can keep on a regular schedule. It's much harder to catch up with you.
We don't know why that is, because we're on a regular schedule uninterrupted, and then some other thing happened in your life, and then all of a sudden it didn't happen. I've been available.
Oh, is that right? Well, that's one way to tell the story. All right.
Wow.
Look,
passive-aggressive hotline.
I feel as though we are right on the verge of needing counseling. Maybe not quite there yet, but close.
That's fair.
I do think there's a lot going on that we'd like you to weigh in on. We haven't spoken to you since the whole Mueller thing was released. I said this leading up to Mueller, that it was stealing a lot of attention away from some of the other stuff, policy decisions and the corruption associated with the Trump administration. I would think, regardless of whether you're right, left, GOP, Democrat, I just think corruption coming through the front door, influence peddling, that kind of thing, conflicts, is a highly conflicted administration. I would think everybody has a problem with that. This is not personal to Trump.
You would think that, and yet a lot of people don't seem to have a problem with it.
Well, there's a tribal thing. It's just bizarre. They'll just close ranks around this guy because he's head of the tribe.
Mitch McConnell just closed the case today on Mueller.
Nothing to see here. We've talked enough about it.
Yeah. Well, and then also you have his support, the Jerry Falwell endorsement, amid some other weird Jerry Falwell news out of Michael Cohen today. But the notion that there is this support from evangelicals, the people that were the slowest to warm to Trump in the 2016 primaries, people who in late 2015 said there's no way they would vote for him. They did something smart. They supported him and they got what they wanted, and they just keep supporting him. So he now has that base that he plays to constantly. And since they're such reliable Republican voters, so many of these other Republicans have a hard time leaving the reservation because of fear of what they might do, what the evangelicals may do to them.
I didn't realize that. See, that's why we can't get away from Michael Shure. He does make some insightful comments occasionally.
Try, though, as you might.
This one is particularly germane because I must tell you, I didn't think of the other Republicans closing rank around Trump because of the evangelical vote. I didn't link those two things, right, as Michael just has, to say, no, the reason that the rest of the GOP is there is because they want that evangelical support also.
Yeah, I linked it to the base, but I was throwing the evangelicals into the base in my assessment.
Yeah.
They're sort of the centerpiece of that base in their way, because there are so many more of them that are reliable voters and people that, that support almost blindly the Republican Party until Trump. And now they've folded him into that sort of group of people to whom they give blind devotion. And it's not so blind, actually. I mean, it started out not being blind. It became blind. And now look where they've gotten. They've gotten their Supreme Court justices. They're changing the courts, tougher abortion laws in many states, a lot of the issues that matter to them. So why would Republicans who want to stay in power, who want to stay in office, run away? I mean, the evangelicals are in their own way a reason for term limits, because when there are term limits, these groups have less power because there are newer names coming down the pike. Not to say that they wouldn't be the same types of candidates, but the power of incumbency combined with the power that these base groups give is sort of inimitable for politicians anywhere else. And term limits would make it so that some of these Republicans would perhaps be free to go against the party if it doesn't matter. And Democrats in Republican areas would probably do better on occasion.
The congressional oversight that was to have limited executive power, which now is being, well, let's face it, there's a standoff, to state it nicely, but it looks as though the party in power is just folding their arms in the form of Donald Trump, saying, forget it. We're done with this. No more subpoenas honored. No more documents released. No more testimonies permitted.
And Mitch McConnell saying, yes, that's what's happening.
Right. Well, and it's true. But the standoff is progress in its own way. Let's say there were still a Republican House. The Mueller report came out. you never think, in terms of like the green lights you made, you only think about the red lights that you keep getting stuck at. And I think that in terms of the way we look at these, the politics of Trump and Mueller and oversight, this is progress to where it would have been. I mean, this would have been thrown out the window with no power of oversight, with no power of subpoena had the House not been won last year. So this is a better place, but it's also this sort of constitutional crisis looming in a way, because what happens now? What happens if the White House continues down this path? And with Don McGahn saying, well, he's not going to turn it over until there's some resolution. He's not going to turn his papers over. It's a constant sort of challenge to what we accept as normal. The constructs of America, of the Constitution, and the way the separation of powers happen, always, I think, presumed good actors, right? They always presume that, yes, we have this protection, and the protection says that if someone's subpoenaed, they would show up, and if they're not, they'd be held in contempt, and then the executive branch would be upset with them. And it's being challenged now in a way that hadn't, I guess, anticipated a presidency like Trump's. But anyway, it's good for the people that want to see it challenged, that there is a division of power now that didn't exist last year.
Absolutely. What Trump is terrified of is people seeing this on television, because he knows better than anyone that people don't read. And he also knows that he doesn't read, and he only gets information from television. So, having Don McGahn talking in the report is one thing. Having Don McGahn testifying on camera is a whole different ballgame to Trump, and that's what he's terrified of.
Totally.
You're right. The number of people who are actually reading the report, even excerpts of the report as written in...
The AG didn't read the report.
It's a best-selling book that no one's read.
Yes.
The whole tug-of-war over impeachment, Nancy Pelosi's against it. Democrats are circumspect, even those who hint at the fact that it might be an appropriate course. And then there are others in the party, among them some presidential candidates, who say, no, we need to impeach. We need to get the story out. The power of impeachment is an important one. And Robert Mueller gave us a blueprint and roadmap to impeachment, and we need to do it. Where are we on this?
Well, everybody's got a different interest in it. Nancy Pelosi won the House and doesn't want to lose the House for all the reasons we talked about just a minute ago. And so her way of doing it is different, although she's coming around and saying, listen, if this stonewalling happens, he's obstructing justice now, right? So even if he didn't obstruct it before, he's obstructing it now, and that should be grounds for impeachment. So there's this whole idea that the Democrats are going to coalesce around something. They're not really going to until there is a clear, the literal smoking gun, the Nixon tape, until this is all unredacted and members of both houses, of both parties in the House can look at what the Mueller report was, and that's what's being pushed back again. So, but you understand why it does play well in some circles to talk about impeachment, and then you don't want to just be the whining party, especially when you're trying to win the White House. And I think that's caused a lot of people to worry that, if all we're talking about is impeachment, and we're just this constant drumbeat, and we know it isn't going to happen, do we want that big a loss? So Nancy Pelosi has to calculate differently as a member, as a part of leadership, than she would as a member of the House, and that's why you have lots of members of that caucus in the House saying, no, we have to impeach, and people putting articles of impeachment forward, because to them, it doesn't matter to Al Green in his Houston district. He's going to get reelected anyway. It doesn't matter to Steve Cohen in Memphis. He's going to get reelected. But Nancy Pelosi wants to make sure she keeps the whole House, because she knows it's a fail-safe and she only has one more chance at being Speaker. So there are lots of different motivations. But truthfully, there isn't anything right now. There isn't one single thing on its own where you say this is grounds for impeachment. But there is a bucket load of things that combined make that case. So they want to keep going with this before they say, let's do it. They also know the Senate won't convict.
Yeah, I suppose that factors into it as well. This guy is a guy who shook off that Access Hollywood tape. I thought there was no shaking that off. I mean, that you could shake off talking about women that way, talking about abusing celebrity, he's a married guy with kids.
It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing. And then you see people up in arms that Joe Biden is giving a back rub and whispering closely. I mean, as distasteful as that might be to some people, the way that they were treated by the media, the public, and others in the party is unbelievable. Other Republicans, some, to their credit, ran away from Trump and said, I can't support him now. Some of them lost because of that. But others just stuck
Some of
with
them
him.
said
Well,
it and
it's,
then came back. Most of them said it and came
that's
back.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's true too. Yeah.
Look at all the positions Lindsey Graham has had on Trump. Look at all the.
No, I don't want to look at all of them.
No, look at all of them. Look at them all right now. But somehow the ghost of Roy Cohn keeps coming and wiping Trump's mess up.
Right. It's amazing, and somebody who was reviled also.
Yeah, but still, maintained his. I mean, not at the end so much, but had a good run as the most horrible person on earth.
You know what?
No,
yeah, it's true. You know what phrase I hate? Because I just feel as though it's sort of like referring to karma, like, karma's going to get you, or, oh, you better, karma finally. I hate that history will be a harsh judge to those that blank. I hate it.
Right.
It's such a BS thing to say,
It's such a ridiculous thing. Yeah. Right. Who's judging harshly? I mean, it just goes to what we just, we're talking about with Roy Cohn, right? Yeah. They judge him as a terrible guy, but all of a sudden he's having a renaissance too. So he's not being judged that horribly.
Yeah. Look at the scoreboard type thing. You know what I mean? So you can.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, history is a harsh judge on, hey, supporting that crime bill was bad. Right. So history is a harsh judge there. But in terms of people and their effects in the now, it's ridiculous. Right. I mean, you can look back and say, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. That's, history judging. But in terms of what your actions are in the moment, the history, how history will judge them doesn't seem to matter anymore.
Yeah. Thank you. That's right. So many inflection moments through even our lifetime, Vietnam, Iraq, right? And, people really died, okay? I don't give a shit about history judging harshly.
Well, I also think that politicians have caught on to the fact that shit goes away almost immediately now, that the what used to be a 6-month Leno monologue joke has a 2-day lifespan now because all the meat is picked off of it on Twitter.
Yeah,
unless you're a Democrat, right?
Right.
If you're Bernie Sanders, you're never going to be able to get over the fact that for some reason the black voters won't like you, or if you're Joe Biden, that all you do is you rub women's shoulders all over the country, like I said a second ago. But it seems that they have a much more difficult time shaking things off.
Well, because if you have no shame, there's none to feel, It's like...
Well, there's that too. And then there's also the echo chamber on the other side of Democrats that just kind of pushes that argument out,
Yeah.
Well, we've said it on this show before, that we've talked about before, the purity test that there is on the left, that there just isn't on the right.
That's so true. I mean, Donald Trump is the perfect example of that. These evangelicals are laughing all the way to the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah.
But because they realized the purity test was silly.
Because you mentioned Bernie, I want to ask you an election question. I sort of feel as though they're keeping their powder dry on some things like Bernie and Biden and whomever. But there are other things that they are firing shots at. And one of the shots that is fired pretty regularly is the socialism label. They really like to slam the socialism label. And when I say they, and I know they're GOP people who listen to this show, I'm talking about those who want to shoot down the Democrats and the ones that the leftists. So when I say this, everybody, please be patient. But I find that they are bringing out that socialism label a lot now to knock down the left. Anyone on the left, that the Democrats, they're socialists, and the socialist part of that party is now taking hold. And, people like AOC, who are high profile and are getting some altitude, some media altitude, they are viewed as sort of the standard bearers of the party instead of just, part of the democratic process.
Right, but they test marketed the socialism label with the Obamacare fight and found that it was quite effective, So it's really digging into that scab, I feel like, with the socialism label.
It's definitely effective. Yeah, how about it, Michael?
Well, I agree exactly with what Jay Elvis just said. I mean, that's what it is. It's so easy. What do you want to do when you're opposing another candidate or another party? Is you want to paint them as the other from everybody else, and socialism is an easy avenue to that.
Right. Your grandfather fought against that.
Right. Exactly. but and it works, and what do? You take the most extreme members of the other and you parody them, and that's what they do with socialism. Do you want Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are much more than socialists, and they're not even socialists. They employ some, but it's very difficult for anyone in politics to say, hey, socialism has some good there's some good parts to socialism.
Well, more than even that, we have a mixed economy. We don't have a free market economy or a capitalist economy purely. There's plenty of aspects of the American economy that are socialist, with price supports on everything from agriculture to military to the military and by the way, speaking of the military, it's owned by the government. You could consider that socialist, as is the police force and all the rest. My point is, of course, it doesn't hold any logical water, but it still seems to be an effective criticism. It does, but that part of it's logical. I mean, you say that, and that's what the Republicans are very good at. Again, it's the otherism. It's saying that these people are so out of touch that you can't possibly support them, and they're so far to the left you can't possibly support them. Meanwhile, being so far to the right, they've been able to make work. And it's also to set up fights within the Democratic Party too, right? It's to create, because when the Democrats are fighting amongst each other, it's good for the Republicans. And what does that do? It puts Democrats against each other. So all of a sudden you're putting Joe Biden, you're putting Beto O'Rourke, you're putting Amy Klobuchar in one bucket, fighting against everyone else in their party. They're not really doing that, right? That's not happening.
Not yet.
But if you paint that picture as the dissonance in the other party, then you're really doing well.
Yeah, I think everyone's holding their fire on Joe Biden right now because his numbers are sort of artificially high, it seems like. Right.
Or are they artificially high? I mean, there is the one argument that people who support Biden make is there's electability, and electability is a boring word. But if you buy into the fact that Joe Biden can win in places where he's shown to be popular, and those are places that Trump unexpectedly won, then it seems like an easy thing. If you're motivated not by Medicare for all, not by infrastructure, not by climate change, right? Those things are all great, but all I want to do is get this guy out of the White House. That's what I think. I think that's what the part of Joe Biden's numbers that are not artificial.
No, I think that's true. I don't think they're inordinately artificial, but I think the fact that at this point in the race, he's the only guy with 100% name recognition,
Right. Well, that's true. That's true.
And just 2 points to go back and pick up the notion of sort of radical socialism. The radicalism to me, from a legislative standpoint, was that tax cut. I mean, to run in and rush this radical tax cut to the top earners in America. It's a huge corporate welfare package that struck me as that's the kind of radicalism that you really don't see on the left. But, we can argue that. I just think it's great that they've cast the left as this radical socialist party when the first thing that they did when they came in was, in my view, pass a radical tax package.
Right.
And that was their top priority.
Which has produced like a 38% deficit in 2019.
Right. It's going to be a $2 trillion deficit over 10 years. I want to, we mentioned...
Not to mention the associated tariffs, which hurts important parts of their constituency in the last election. So that's an important part to remember. The tariffs are against farmers, against manufacturers, all of that. That's a big part of the Republican constituents.
I want to ask you about those states that you just mentioned, and then I have a bigger question about the election and all of these candidates. But because you mentioned the key states that Donald Trump surprisingly carried. Is Joe Biden the answer if he just carries those states because all the other places he'll carry? And go through the states again, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
I would say that Michigan, I would say that Wisconsin, I would say Pennsylvania. Those three states, most importantly, I think are states that I expected that Trump would lose.
If Uncle Joe carries that, then the Dems get the White House or not?
Yes, yeah, because there's not a lot of fluctuation in the rest of the country, and natural fluctuation. It could the places where you could see it go the other way are against Republicans rather than for Republicans, no matter who the candidate is, and then places where demographic shifts have affected that, like Arizona. But I still, I don't see that happening either. So I think that if the Electoral College, which seems to reflect American tribalism right now. It stays as it is, with, let's say, a surprise here. Let's say New Hampshire goes to the Republicans next time and Arizona goes to the Democrats. I think those sorts of, anticipated surprises or unanticipated surprises could happen. But I also could see North Carolina going to the Democrats. I could see we're playing this too early now, but those sorts of things can happen. But I do think that if you flip those three states back, two of those three states back, you hold the rest of the country. I imagine it'll probably stay the same. Then you win. But But that's not also saying that only Joe Biden can do that at all.
Either way, I mean, I'm quite happy that Joe Biden is in the race, frankly, because either I think he is an electable candidate. But just as importantly, I think anybody who goes through Joe Biden is going to be a much better candidate on the other side.
Yeah, that's probably true. Depending on how much he puts another candidate through. Once the field gets sort of chiseled away, it'll be interesting to see, if it's Bernie and Joe, how hard Bernie goes against Joe Biden versus how he ran against Hillary Clinton, and whether or not Joe Biden can win over those Democrats in that interim. That are. I imagine you will also see one thing that you don't see now is that if let's say Joe Biden is going to be the candidate, which we can't possibly say yet,
right?
But let's say he is, he's going to have. Then Obama will endorse, and Obama will be a huge help campaigning-wise in a way that he wasn't even to Hillary Clinton, because Obama will do a lot more in 2020 than he did in 2016.
Right.
And that's one of the – and he would do it most for Joe Biden, obviously. That would eclipse the work he would do for, candidate Gillibrand, for example.
Right.
There are so many.
Or I would do for candidate Gillibrand.
Is that right? You're not going to.
There's that too.
You're not going to show up on this town for Gillibrand?
I'm really not.
The number of Democratic candidates for president is substantial. I mean, what is it?
22, I think.
21, 22? Okay. Is that good for the process? Bad for the process? Does it help?
It just lengthens the process. I mean, it's not going to – I don't think it's anything for the process. I think that eventually people are going to start not being able to afford this after the second debate. So I think by the middle of July, you're going to see people start dropping out who are just getting no fundraising, no attention. You have a handful of people running for vice president, running for secretary of state now. I don't see, barring, obviously, any kind of scandal, which has afflicted Joe Biden in one of his campaigns. I don't see how this field doesn't thin pretty quickly in the middle of the summer.
Do you know anything about how the money is flowing to the Democrats in terms of it seems like there's a lot of money that would be staying on the sidelines right now?
There is. I mean, there was a lot of money waiting for Joe Biden to run, and I think that that's starting to get committed, and his finance committee is making a big push now that he's a candidate. So there are people that weren't going to write a check to Beto O'Rourke because they were waiting to see what Joe Biden did.
Right.
And that's happening now. Again, it's too early because you had a lot of money going to somebody like Pete Buttigieg, who nobody even thought would be, and somebody else, another candidate's going to have their moment too.
Sure.
Like Kamala Harris is going to, or somebody like that is going to sort of be shot out of a cannon soon, like Buttigieg was, and they'll have their moment, and there'll be, a lot of money going their way for a period of time, whoever that is.
Why do these guys run for president? I say guys generically. Why does someone run for president? In other words, is it people sitting around and you're active, you're a politician, or you're in the political process, and people go, wow, you've got great ideas. You got to get them out there. You could run this country. And you start to, you get drunk on your own crap and what people who are feeding the crap around you. I'm not saying that these aren't all people, let's say, who have good ideas, but I'm just curious how people who are virtual unknowns, are they participating because they're trying to build a name for the next time, or do they really think they can possibly be the outlier?
First of all, I think everybody who runs for mayor wants to be president, and I think that when you see an open year and anybody's ball game, you jump in. And if you're, say, Eric Swalwell, who you're just a congressman from California, you think, okay, well, a small piece of this pie could get me far. So if I can win in Nevada, or if I can come in third in Nevada, and okay, so it's Biden, Sanders, and Swalwell. Wow. Let me finish third in Nevada, because then you'll get all the attention in the world just for finishing third. And then they start propping you up in other places. And that's kind of what happens. So I think that's what it is. It's, why do you buy a lottery ticket a little bit? But these people feel like they can reach certain constituencies. I don't know I get why Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington, thinks, okay, I'm going to grab an issue and be the it guy on that issue, which he's doing with climate change, right? And see what happens from there. But you have to, be a little more appealing. But if that issue is having its moment, and all of a sudden it can propel him onto a main stage of a debate where he makes a point and people are tired of looking at the other people, they say, oh, I'm going to give this guy a look. So people do shop, and they shop, most profoundly in New Hampshire and Iowa in ways you've never seen if you haven't been there, because they really do come and they say, you'll ask people, have you picked a candidate? And you're standing, in the snow listening to someone you've never heard of give a speech, and they say, no, I haven't picked. I'm just out here seeing what they had to say. That doesn't happen everywhere. And so that's who these people are appealing to.
That is the literal retail politics that they talk about.
Totally.
But I think like when Jay Inslee, a guy like that, gets his moment, that's a good thing for the debate, because if that moment is peak enough, then his issue can become the main candidate's issue a little more, because they need to tap into that moment.
Yeah, unquestionably. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But these presidential races tend to be monologues, not ensembles, by the time you have a nominee. And yes, what Jay Inslee's saying right now, it's sort of like when you hear the candidate give their concession speech. We may not have won, but a lot of people paid attention.
Right.
The winning candidate heard us. Right. That's not. Those are nice words, but I don't ever believe that. Right. The winning candidate feels that they won because they did everything that the loser didn't do.
Right.
And so I don't know that I don't know how much water it holds, but I will say that if Jay Inslee talks a ton about climate change and voters are asking about climate change, then yes, then the nominee will definitely be someone who talks about climate change a lot.
It's great that he's chosen that. I have two questions. First, because you mentioned climate change, I'd like to follow up on that. And then I want to jump back to the various issues, because you say, every candidate or many of these candidates have chosen one issue. You mentioned Swalwell. He's a big gun control guy, and he wants to impeach, and, he's taken very strong positions. In the case of Jay Inslee, he's really hit this climate change thing. Climate change, oddly, this doesn't reflect the dire circumstance that we find ourselves in, but it doesn't poll super well. I mean, it's not a kitchen table issue on some level. I feel as though it's just a fact. I don't like it, but I just don't know if I would play it as a front and center issue. Can you rank some of the issues that seem to be, at least at this juncture, big with voters potentially?
Well, healthcare is always big with voters, since they got healthcare. Right. And so you saw it in 2016, and then you really saw it in 2018. Voters talked about health care everywhere I went in 2018. It was the only issue they were talking about. So to that end, health care, I don't think, has disappeared. I think that that when you look at some of the issues around immigration, not so much what the cure is, because nobody's sort of proposing a cure to our immigration problem, really, except for President Trump. Nobody's saying what we should do instead, other than we know we don't want to do that. When you look at DACA, when you look at how people are being treated in general, I think that is something that's scoring points on the campaign trail as well, people talking about that. And then student debt, student debt is a big issue that Democrats can really capitalize on with a solid plan about how to address it, because the Republicans haven't. And the problem with Bernie Sanders is, just abolishing student debt doesn't seem like it seems like it's pie in the sky. But I would say those issues seem to be healthcare, immigration, and student debt seem to be the ones that I hear people talking most about, and wages. While we're very employed right now, wages have remained fairly stagnant, and that's affecting people because the cost of living is going way up.
I might put wages up that list pretty high, actually. I might go healthcare wages, don't you think, Michael? I mean, I think that they point to a successful economy, and of course Trump talks about the Dow and talks about the stock market, but the reality is most people don't participate in that economy.
No, that's true. They don't, and that's why I sort of kept it farther down. I may move it up ahead of student debt because you're right. But everywhere you're going, maybe because it's a sexier issue, people are talking about immigration and how they want to stop what Trump is doing on immigration. You have to also realize it, and this is the case for most members of the press. We're hearing Democrats. We're not hearing Republicans, and they're sort of speaking the same language right now for the most part. So it's not one against the other, and it's not, they just know that they want something different than what Trump offers on immigration. And that's a big part of it too. You have to remember that it's the same crowd speaking. It's not like William Wells, who's running against Trump, is commanding all this attention right now.
Right.
There are a few fronts on which this administration seems to be spoiling for some kind of armed conflict. One is Venezuela, one is Iran. I can't believe it, but potentially, possibly, maybe North Korea. I would put that last on the list and further down. I just don't see. I mean, I know Bolton has been for an armed conflict in North Korea. At least that's what he said on television through the years. He's written pieces about it, and I think that those pieces and some of those television appearances have appealed to Trump. But certainly Iran and Venezuela, it looks as though we're on something of a military footing. Now, my question, from a political standpoint, because that's your thing, does that inoculate the administration from a lot of the other vagaries of politics during this political season?
Well, they definitely hope so. It's too early to see because there's nothing to really test them. There are no primaries for Republicans really to speak of. There are no debates early to speak of. So, and there won't be. I can't imagine that Trump will debate a Republican. But I think that when you look at the politics of what this is, it's saber rattling and it's defining an enemy, which Republicans, like we talked about before, defining that enemy early is an important part of it. So in Iran, you're defining in essence, in a macro way, terrorism, right? And bad people, and you're helping Israel out, which is part of the Republican base, not because of Jews, but because of evangelicals.
Right.
And then when you go to Venezuela, you're fighting communism all over again, which is it's a great thing to remember. Like Jay Elvis said before, it's like my grandfather fought against that, so you're still fighting against it. So it's a good PR thing for Republicans among Republicans. How many people it's going to win over and what it will do, ultimately, it's hard to predict.
But do they need a wag the dog moment if they're in trouble? If it seems as though it's going to really be a horse race, might there be a wag the dog moment?
There may be. There's always that possibility, and it seems like it's sort of more pronounced when you have John Bolton there and you have Donald Trump there, who thinks that it may be a neat thing to do, possibly. It's hard to predict those things. If he really needs it, he could do it. But the problem with that is we know what wag the dog is now. When wagging the dog happened historically, the people were didn't really know about it. We have so many people talking about it now, so many skeptics, that it obviously reveals what you are from the beginning.
But everything Trump does is transparent in that way. And I was going to say that when you said wag the dog, is it's like he doesn't have to wag the dog because he can just hold up the dog and go, look what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, that's really true.
I mean, even that
really
thing,
true.
the thing where sending the
National Guard to the border?
Well, no, but sending the immigrants to the sanctuary cities. He even said in his speech, I have to say, that was my sick idea. He literally said that in his speech.
Yeah, right.
No, you're right. I mean, the political stunts are sort of his stock and trade. We saw it, and I thought went first to immigration, sending the military to the border, talking about the fact that it's a national emergency at the border, all these things.
Yeah, the complete absence of shame
Shutting down the
allows you to
government.
do incredible things, to have incredible brazenness that no one has had before.
No one has had. That's the thing. It's all new, this brazenness, and maybe that act gets old to people. I don't know, but when other Republicans who don't like the president, and there are some, have an option that isn't Hillary Clinton, maybe that changes the equation electorally too.
I think it will.
And maybe they see an opportunity to call this guy out on it. And if that's the case, then Democrats look even better, no matter who the nominee is.
Well, there's a school of thought that goes like this: who can beat Donald Trump? Anybody from the Democratic Party. That Donald Trump cannot win. He doesn't have the support. He has a stink on him as a result of this first 4 years. I know we're not through the entire 4 years yet, but people want out of this, even some members of the GOP, enough for it to matter. Is that not true? That overstates it?
I don't know that is true because it was disproven in 2016, right? Because that theory existed going into a race with Donald Trump. Like, oh, my God.
It could never happen.
Donald Trump wins the nomination. It could, A, how could he win the nomination? B, oh, God, it would be so good if he won the nomination because any Democrat could beat him, and it looks like we're going to have Hillary, and that might be the only person she could beat. Well, she couldn't really beat him. So,
well, and frankly, it felt that way in 2004, too, with Kerry and Bush. Like, how could anybody reelect Bush?
Right, but the Republicans liked Bush. I mean, I agree with that. They ran a good campaign, and we were in the middle of what they were able to define as being a war.
Right.
Well, the genius of that, I don't mean to interrupt, but one of the absolute magic trick that they performed, and I still don't understand how they did it. They took a guy who really evaded military service, any real military service, in George Bush, and they somehow cast him as more of a patriot than John Kerry, who was a person of privilege and actually fought in the War of Vietnam. Absolutely remarkable to me.
Well, they created a verb, swift boating.
Yes.
That's a thing. That's an actual verb now. So
just thought that was one of the great Houdini moves I'd ever seen.
Absolutely.
Michael?
And Republicans are good at that. They're very good at it.
Yeah.
History will judge them harshly, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Any personal news you'd like to share with the Edge audience?
No, I don't have any. I was
usually is some
bar mitzvah in 1979.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of commemoration annually on that, or not?
No, there's not.
No.
No, I have no personal news. I did a series on the border for I-24 News, which you can see at i24news.tv. 5 stories from the border, and they were all fascinating and educational and heart-wrenching and astonishing and nice.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good. Well, listen, I hope you'll try to work us back into your schedule. I have.
Well, Mark, I hope you are able to work me back into your schedule.
I just love close with the guilt trip. Something in his head
and we'll talk later. This was fun, though.
I loved it, Michael Shure, everybody. Come on.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much.
All right, Michael, go do something you like to do. Thank you.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Nice talking to you.
Guy knows his shit on politics.
Oh yeah.
But boy, politics is a changing, man, isn't it?
It is.
It ain't your papa's politics. It really isn't.
No, you were talking earlier about like why do people run, and it's like I think even that is changing just because we are in such a brand building world right now.
That's kind of what I was getting at when I said, do people want visibility for?
Well, some I think, like he said, some are running for vice president, some are running for secretary of state, some are just trying to build up an audience for their book.
Or it could be the book, but I don't even mean to say that it's completely sort of that they're nakedly self-absorbed. I mean, or, even not so nakedly self-absorbed. They may have issues that they feel passionately about, and they feel that the newfound visibility will help get those issues out. You know what I mean? I'm not suggesting it's pure ego. I'm just saying that I think that there are other reasons to run for president besides thinking that you can actually be president.
But you can't discount narcissism from the from the chemistry of it all, I don't think either.
I'll tell you what, I'm really worried about. He is surrounded by hawks, and he is clueless, Donald Trump. Yeah. He doesn't know, and he loves the military. He just likes anything shiny that makes noise.
Absolutely.
And I just think these guys could talk him into anything.
I think so, too. And if not, the people on Fox can.
Yeah, that's right. And they echo these things because they also like things that are shiny and make noise.
Yeah.
I think it's a scary time. I don't mean to bum people out, but I just think it's certainly a time of concern.
Right.
I don't know what to do on this impeachment thing, to be honest. I'm caught on that also.
I'm a little caught on it. I mean, I think, what needs to happen is what I was talking about earlier is America needs to see some of these people talking on TV.
Yeah, but
and that's what he's terrified of.
What's happening now is nobody's coming forward. McGahn's not going to come forward.
It's going to be slow. It's going to have to go to the courts, and eventually, the courts are going to be able to send someone with a gun to these people and go, here are your options, sir.
Maybe. I think it's going to take
But it could take into his second term. I don't know.
There you go. I mean, I just don't think, I think by...
But I think to go to right now, try to impeach from like this moment, I think all you're doing is creating his fundraising campaign because you're not going to get it through the Senate. It's not going to be successful without those moments.
But The Benghazi hearings and the impeachment hearings against Bill Clinton, they weren't successful either.
Well, they impeached Bill Clinton.
They impeached him. They didn't remove him from office.
No, but that was the same reason
No,
we
but
can't
I'm
get
saying
Trump out.
No, that's exactly why I mentioned it, because
Right.
they initiated the proceeding even though they knew that it wasn't going to be successful.
Right. But I also I don't think that there was the kind of polarization. Even there was plenty of antipathy towards Bill Clinton back then, but the amount of just spite support for Trump at this point that ain't moving. We've seen it. It's 38%.
Right.
They're not moving.
No, they just want to own the libs.
Yeah.
Jay Elvis, I have talked to you about this, and we even talked about it today. I want to share some fresh tracks from your new album, man.
Yeah.
But I know that you're still working on it.
Well, it's an actual. If it was my album, I would say yes. But
does that mean a company is? It's with a company
it's an
right
actual
now,
record company, yeah.
and they are doing this album, and they're kind of paying you for doing the album,
or they paid for the album,
right?
So
okay.
I don't have the rights to go here. Listen.
Okay.
Yeah,
I see. Okay, that's cool.
But I'm on the second edit from the editor today, so I'm going to go home and listen to all the tracks.
Do you give them notes on the album? This is a comedy album that Jay Elvis is doing, of course.
Yeah. So far, it's been all my direction.
Right.
We'll see if there's a phase where they start giving me notes, but so far it's been.
If the album does well, will you live in some gilded mansion in like Encino or something, like with Jay-Z down the street?
No, I already do. If I'll live in a bigger one.
He's J. Elvis Weinstein, and if you want to communicate with him, I find Twitter is a good way to reach him. He's at J. Elvis Weinstein, and he has a podcast with Andy Kindler. It's called Thought Spiral.
It's a gay old time.
It's good. It really
in
is.
the old sense of the word, in the Flintstone sense of the gay old time.
Yeah. You can reach us at edgewithmarkthompson@gmail. Edgewithmarkthompson@gmail. I'm at Mark T Live on Twitter. We are done. This has been a fun little dip in the political pool. J. Elvis, thank you. May I leave something? I feel like I'm forgetting to say something.
We love you, listeners.
We do love the listeners. I really do. People have been very supportive, and it's a pleasure to visit with them whenever we can. All right.
See you at Edgefest.
Until next time, bye-bye.
If you enjoy listening to The Edge, support them by subscribing to The Edge on iTunes, Stitcher, and you can listen through the iHeartRadio app. Get busy listening.
Get more of The Edge on Stitcher and iTunes, or go to our website, edge-show.com.